Do I think families in the church know how to sit down for a family worship? My answer was no, that I don't believe most families do. I think most people treat worship as an event, and then when they do sit down, it becomes somewhat of a more of a clinical thing and a teaching at the individual level for the individual to reflect. Do I think the pastors and leaders of church have trained parents to lead such time? My answer is no on that. I believe that most pastors today, we have a tendency to either tell in our teaching or to remind, again, at the individual level. We teach the what God is saying and sometimes why, but I think we really need to shift to the what, how to do this. How can you apply this in your personal, and then the accountability of that, and then do I think leaders have given parents resources they could use? I think most are attempting to now. I don't think they have in the past, but there's a big responsibility with that as well. We don't just throw out resources and hope that people will use them. There's nothing worse than having resources than using them improperly. And then what will I do when I lead churches? I'm, I'm going to work my best to put these principles in place to really have people reflect on how they can create an impact, not only in their personal life, but to advance the kingdom in all things that they do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think most families don't know what it means to sit down for family worship, mostly because they've never seen it modeled and they've never received much training or equipping to be able to do that, and to be able to tailor that for their specific family, because different families would probably benefit from different types of family worship styles. And so I think probably my church hasn't done a huge amount of training parents to be able to lead such times, but they have sent out resources like Right Now Media, which I think is really helpful. And I think the really motivated parents would take that and then sift through the resources and find something for their family that would be really beneficial for them. But I think it would be really helpful for church leaders to kind of do some of that preliminary work to figure out, here are a few different options that would be good for different types of families, and here's a guide for how you can actually go through this with your family. So I think that extra training and follow up would be really helpful. And maybe even having families connect with each other. So two families are put in a pair and they're both going through something together or with their families each. But then they're working through the different kinks together, trying to figure out how to improve it and make it work. So I think that would be a really helpful way to move forward.
So I don't think families do know how to do family worship. I don't think they've been prepared. I don't think they've been given the proper resources. Uh, I feel like there's a lot that we could do, and having this virus has really made me think more about people worshiping at home as a family, as a unit, and how that would bring them closer to each other and closer to God. I was thinking about apologetics and teaching apologetics to the family, the history of the Bible, and I was just thinking just now, there's an aspect of creation that we could look at, that we could go out and experience as a family, and talk about God's creation and read stuff out of the Bible that would be very engaging as a family. I think there's a lot that I need to do as a leader in church moving forward, and I know up to this point, I felt a little discouraged and challenged by what's been going on, and how to reach out to people, and how to get resources to people, and how to worship as a body. And I just pray that the Lord inspires us all to train people, and to bring those families around to where they worship the King Jesus. That's what I would do moving forward.
All right, and I agree with you guys wholeheartedly in what you've said, and I would say that as a general rule, most churches don't, most families don't have a clue what it looks like to really sit down and do family worship. And I think some pastors, some leaders do really well at equipping. Some do fairly well at equipping, and some don't even try. I think some of them are more interested in didactic teaching. They just want to teach the Bible. They want to get that knowledge out there, and they're content to leave the practice of family worship kind of to chance, I guess, if I could say it that way, if you guys would let me say it that way. So I think definitely our church we're kind of on the fence. We're a lot more theological, and a lot less on the practice. But that's one of my desires and hopes, is that we can kind of move into that more of a training and teaching. Like Lauren said, we do lots of training, but we really don't. I mean, lots of teaching, but we really don't do any training to speak of. We're really pretty good at telling you what to do, but not really showing you how to do it. And so I definitely would say that that's something that we need to do, and that's actually one of my unspoken goals. I'm not really the family pastor, but that's something that's been more and more on my heart as we've gone through this class. So that's what I would say.
I'm going to agree with the group here. I don't think most families feel equipped or have an understanding of how to lead worship at home or how to do family worship. I know my church particularly is pretty disjointed between the older and younger generation. We have a gap there where we don't really have very many young families. We have older people and we have kids and high school kids, but their parents don't come to church at all. So as far as equipping them, there's not anyone in the church to equip. I love to see some ways to maybe go through the youth to get material out to the parents, or maybe get some things to the families that they can work on together. I've been working on some Bible studies just through video with church members, but I think that's something most churches need to focus on, is how to get the families connected to really branch out as the church instead of each group individually.